Soca you want? More soca.
I know what I want in life is soca.
Lighten up your internet stream with hand. This is the pump. This is the vibes. It's all about yourviberadio.com.
Everybody wanna feel like free.
I'm gonna go into rapping the most, okay?
No go no. Keep it locked to yourviberadio.com.
No, just you can turn down. I'll press it. I'll press that part. And we're live. Guys, if you can, please do me a favor. Go ahead and send this to all your friends. I'm sending my hey. Hey, y'all. I got the afro in today. Oh, I see 7 people. Guys, today, let me... Welcome. All right. Robin, I'm about to bring you on now. Okay? I just had a few little technical glitches I had to get together. All right. So, guys, I am about to bring on, okay, another GOAT. Last week I had Shelly the GOAT. This weekend I have Robin the GOAT. Okay? These women are GOATs because they are just so freaking knowledgeable, okay, about content when it comes to mental health, okay? And today in particular, we're going to talk about childhood trauma. Okay, hey y'all. All right, today in particular, we're going to talk about childhood trauma. We're going to talk about addressing childhood trauma. We're going to talk about as adults, how this affects us. We're going to talk about as parents, if you are a parent, if you know a parent, you know, certain tips that can be utilized. And of course, we're going to rap. Okay, do not judge me. Remember, I'm not drinking today. I'm not going to show what I'm drinking. It is a seltzer with 5%. I'm not drinking my mimosas. It was a long weekend. You know, my birthday just passed. All right. So with that being said, all right, I'm going to bring on the GOAT, Miss Robin. All right. So I want y'all to give it up for her. She come on. And remember, please send this out to all your friends. There she is.
Girl, you're funny. You're funny. Thank you for all the accolades.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for achieving them. All right, everybody.
I do want to make this clarification. First of all, I got a drink, little rum punch.
Okay, my hard seltzer.
Okay, you need a little bubbly to continue to recover from your weekend. A little bubbly.
Yes, just a little bit.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Happy belated birthday, sweet little sister.
Thank you.
My phone would say low battery. Whatever. I'm about to plug it in. I want to make a clarification. I am a board certified behavior analyst. And so in my experience, I have worked with a lot of children who've experienced trauma and done a lot of training for parents and teachers and professionals on what those behaviors look like, what it shows up like in a certain space. So, excuse me, viewers, I have to find, but yeah, so that's that.
Okay. All right, good. So just to give a disclaimer for everyone coming on, this of course is another great episode of Rapid Mimosas. I believe this is actually my 9th one. So I'm super happy. I'm super proud, you know, ninth one. That means I'm over 2 months into the podcast game, you know, learning as I go. And I'm super excited because for those of you who follow potentially one of my other pages, Love Me Below, I know I have 1 million, right? I did actually have Robin on and we talked a lot. Matter of fact, it was one of like the most viewed, I want to say, Yoni Poppin' Tuesdays I had. So many people had questions when it came to anything dealing with behavior, anything dealing with potentially like what is trauma, how do we heal from trauma. So I'm super excited to have you on today, because today we're gonna like pretty much redo that conversation, but I got some new little nuggets that I have questions about, because when I come on Rapping Mimosas, this is my time to be transparent, right, about myself, because I feel like vulnerability is key, and learn myself as well, but also be with my people. And of course, this is Rapping Mimosas, so that means that we are going to rap at the end of this session. I always get the disclaimer: I am not a rap artist. I'm not trying to get a record deal. I am not looking for one. I don't want one. Okay, my guests thus far have not been rap artists. Okay, however, I might have one or two in the mix that's coming up, in a couple episodes, right? But they're not rap artists. So we just having fun. We sipping some, good drink. Okay, we're going to have a good time, and we're going to share some great information. So with that being said, let me go ahead and play this real quick.
Rapping mimosa, these bars in the holster. Pouring up a drink, put my name on the poster. Women who can rap, make you come a little closer. Step out the whip, drop a tip to my chauffeur. New guest on my list, champagne spot my hips. It's time to get lit, y'all know what it is. Rapping mimosas.
Woo!
Woo!
My little intro.
Okay. Intro.
So before we get started, Robin, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what your full certifications and all your accolades are, because once again, you are another GOAT in the game, another person that I look up to. Okay, so let the people know who you are, what you do, and then we're going to get started from here. Thank you and welcome to everyone that's coming in. If y'all have any questions as we're going through and we're talking about behavior, all right, please feel free to drop them in the chat, all right?
Absolutely. So my name is Robin Williams, and I'm a board certified behavior analyst and an educator. I have been both for about 21 years now, and my experience has been primarily working with individuals who present challenging behaviors, and that could be. And can you hear me? Okay. I hear a little slow.
It's going out just a little bit, but it's
Okay.
good.
I'm sorry about that. My experience has been with children and adults who live in a variety of settings. That could be group home settings where I have seen the most trauma. I've also worked in school settings. I've worked in private family homes. I currently hold a contract with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And so that is where I have seen some of the most challenging behaviors of individuals who've experienced trauma, and it shows up in so many ways. So my job as a behavior analyst is to try to understand what the cause is and what are the maintaining factors for these behaviors in an individual's life. Traditionally, behavior analysis does not look at internalisms, like things that psychologists might look at, like, oh, he was thinking this. We look at what are the environmental factors in this person's life that are causing things to happen. So what are the triggers? I know that, and I'm going to be a little bit transparent with myself too, LaShow. As a child, I was molested as a child by a family member. Actually, 1 in every 4 Black girls will be molested and sexually traumatized, most likely by a family member. And so just to break down what a behavior analyst would look like as opposed to a licensed therapist, this person smoked cigarettes. And so that scent, that odor of cigarettes was something as I grew and I was around other adult males, whenever I would smell that cigarette smell, it was a trigger for me. And I would engage in certain behaviors. Those behaviors might be trying to get away from that person, shutting down, not talking, closing my legs a little bit tighter, folding my arms in front of my body. So those are very objective things that happened as a result of that trigger. So I hope that is not going too far. Thank you, Dungeon Forward. I'm healed. I moved on and I can talk about it. But I hope I didn't go too far in the conversation is what I'm saying.
No. This is definitely, like I said, it's a safe place. Thank you, Dungeon for commenting. Like, it's something I've shared, and I honestly, just being transparent, I did not look at myself as someone who had survived sexual assault until recently, until someone else put it in a different perspective for me in like October, November. I had normalized the assault. I had normalized the behavior that had been done to me by a partner, right? As a matter of fact, by more than one partner. So it's one of those things where it's something that I'm still learning to become accustomed with, especially because it happened to me as an adult, as a grown woman. And a lot of times you fault yourself or feel like, well, I shouldn't have put myself in that position. So it's definitely something I've talked about on this platform more than once, actually, at this point, and it's something that I'm still wrapping my mind around on a very daily basis.
Moment
So
by moment.
moment by moment. So thank you for your full transparency, and even like looking at my actions that I do or have done, right? I have, people pleasing tendencies at times, like my behavior, especially especially in relationships. I want to be perfect. I want to get it right. I want to do this. I want to do that. So a lot of that is from certain things I experienced as a child, but also certain things that I felt or happened to me while I was in, a relationship, and being able to like actually admit that and acknowledge it and be able to like go into, whenever I get into my next relationship, go into that knowing, some of these triggers that I have. So no, I thank you and I respect your full transparency. Absolutely. So what
Have
got you?
I'm sorry, I have a question for you. Since we're
Oh,
talking about trauma and we're both survivors of it, have you looked at what continued to maintain some of those behaviors for you too? Because I know for myself, very much a people pleaser, still something I have to deal with as well. But some of that attention and affection that I received from other people, when I was able to look back at it, it was like, oh, that's why I continue to engage in certain behaviors. That's why I put myself out there and did things that maybe I didn't necessarily feel were genuinely me, but I was receiving a sense of feeling purposed and feeling acknowledged and feeling loved. Have you been able to tap into any of that?
oh, Jesus, girl. No, for me, I'm still tapping into it. I know for me, like when it comes to like the things I do with people pleasing, and I still struggle with this idea of perfectionism because I don't want someone to leave me. And this is in relationships, and that's platonic as well as, romantic. I struggle because I don't want to be left. I don't want, the person I'm with. So if my partner wants X, Y, and Z, and I think, or in the past, if I thought, oh, they're going to leave me if I don't do X, Y, and Z, then I would just, whatever I had to do to give them that, I would sacrifice, those parts of myself in order to give them that. So I think that that's something I've been looking at. I've been able to notice progress even in my last like relationship or two, honestly. Like I noticed I was putting up boundaries and I was sticking to my boundaries. Even if I was uncomfortable or thought that they might leave, I said, so what? So being able to like really keep myself, at a place of I'm worthy, and I affirm myself daily, but definitely the fear of abandonment, like being left and thinking if someone walks out of my life, that's I did something wrong. What did I do? What could I have done better? How could I please them? I wanted to please them so bad. And a lot of times it will be at the detriment of my mental health or my financial health or my spiritual health, because I was willing to do whatever to keep them around, even if they weren't necessarily worthy of my energy anymore. And I've just been learning slowly but surely, like not to have that, or I do checks and balances. So
Right.
I question myself before I do things. Is this something you really want to do because you want to do it and it could help, benefit this person in the process? Or is it something you're doing because if you don't do it, your fear is that they will walk out of your life, or that they'll leave you, or, even working like, for me dealing with like my sexual trauma, I didn't really realize the fact that a lot of my sexual experiences, I was completely detached from my body. Like
Absolutely.
even to the point where, and some of this stuff, maybe stuff I blocked out of my memory, because even when I remember losing my virginity, this is going to be very transparent. When I lost my virginity, when I remember my friend said, what did it feel like? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I remember Glitter was on TV and I was like, oh, I liked this movie, and I watched Glitter. So I was completely detached. I would have sexual experiences and I would not at all be present in the moment at all. I was in my head. I was counting sheep. I was anywhere else because there was something that wasn't connecting. And it wouldn't be that the sex was bad. I just was not there physically, you know? Like I would be there to a certain extent and then I would disappear out of the sexual encounter. And as I got older, it wouldn't be every single time, but there would be moments and times where I would just not be present. I'm doing it not because I want to do it, but because I want to please him.
And part of that is trying to remain in what you thought was a safe space. And so what happens when we experience trauma, sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, there is a part of our brain that changes. And we are not able to do anything but think about survival and safety. Our amygdala is like firing like crazy. That's a part of our brain that thinks like, let me just keep my body safe. Let me keep my mind safe, my heart safe, whatever it is. But mainly our brain thinks about our bodies. And so if we have been sexually traumatized, we know what that feels like when we're not safe and what we had to do in that moment to try to regain some safety. So feeling absent or removing yourself from that experience is how you did that. It's just that you hadn't learned yet, and you're currently learning. We're all on a journey of learning. You hadn't learned in some of those earlier sexual experiences, what other behaviors could I engage in? One, to teach me how to experience sex in a safe way, but also when I am feeling triggered, when I am feeling safe, knowing unsafe, knowing the changes in your body, and then how to voice that to your partner so that you can access safety without the sexual part attached in order to make the sex better. The same thing happens when we have caregivers, parents and or grandparents and or adult caregivers that we have been traumatized by. A lot of times people think trauma is like, oh, you were in a horrible car accident or you saw someone killed in front of you. Yes, that's traumatic. But let's not forget that we just all lived and are currently living through a pandemic. People lost jobs. People lost loved ones. That's traumatic. What happened in your body at that time? How did your body seek safety? What behaviors did you engage in? A lot of what I have seen is an increase in people who are experiencing feelings of depression and anxiety. And what that shows as a result of the trauma that they've experienced, right? And that shows up in a lot of escape and avoidant behaviors, drug use. Let me get drunk. Let me get high because I can escape having to be in my body and experience that unsafe feeling as a result of trauma. Let me be around people who are going to give me attention and validate me in a way because I need that attention and affection and validation. But attention doesn't always come in a positive way. It can come in a negative way. So in my work that I do a lot with kids who are within the juvenile justice system, what I have to train some of the clinicians who work with them to understand is that this child comes from a very traumatic environment and their behavior has been reinforced in a negative way. Let me explain that even further. If you are a child and the only time you hear your name called is when you're in trouble because somebody wants to verbally reprimand you or scold you or call you to them so that they can beat you, that's the only form of attention that you know. That's the only form of validation that you know. One of the gurus that I learned from, she told me a long time ago, when you work with children, children need to know that their name is safe in your mouth. And it's something that I share in every training that I give with clinicians and professionals and parents. But it's so true because if our kids begin to associate their name with things that are unsafe or caregivers that are unsafe, and that's all they have, that's what they'll continue to do as an adult. And so we have to make sure that we're giving our children spaces where they know that they are safe, that we give them positive attention and validation and affection so that when they become adults, they don't only seek let me be with somebody who's going to talk to me in a certain way because that's love. And that's how we hear it, right? People who are like, oh, well, if he don't do this, he don't care about you. That's not it, honey.
It's so funny. This was probably in December or January. For people who don't know, I do work with the youth still in different capacities. And I was sitting at a desk, and the kids were talking about something. One of the girls had blocked her boyfriend, something like that, something to that capacity. And then the other girl was like, "Well, he didn't try to find another way to contact you." And then she was like, that's why it's over, because he don't care about me. And I'm just like, "But you blocked him, sis." And then she was like, "But Miss Johnson, X, Y, and Z, and no, he's supposed to find another way, and da 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 da." And I said, "No, he's not." I said, "One, if you blocked him, I'm assuming he was doing something that you needed to protect yourself from. So you should be, maintaining your own boundary that you're putting in place. And two, that's not healthy. So if you blocked him because of something, he didn't call you back or something like that, and you're trying to teach him a lesson, that's not healthy. That's going to be looked at as a very toxic, scenario. And teenagers like, "Oh, here you go, Miss Johnson. You always coming. We over here just talking about X, Y, and Z, and you coming over here talking about it's what's toxic and what's healthy. We ain't trying to hear all that, Because I talk about healthy food and healthy relationships with them and things like that. I'm always out healthy, 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 and they come with no toxic, toxic, toxic. Like they'll sit there and say, "Miss Johnson, I'm toxic." I'm just like, "That's not cute. But come can I talk to you? Can I talk to you for just a little bit longer?" And it's such a mindset thing. Working with teenage girls, I've seen, and I'm talking about girls specifically, but boys, of course, we know also have their own trauma that they also endure and the things that they feel they need to do. I work a lot with teenage girls, and a lot of times, like I remember when I worked at a high school, I caught a girl giving oral sex in the bathroom, right? So the boy zooms out of the bathroom. I mean, he zoomed out so fast, I cannot tell you what he looked like. Like
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I didn't expect him to leave that fast. So the girl is left kind of collecting her items and her things, trying to, walk. And she, at that point, I'm standing so close, she has no choice but to walk slow and just try to like kind of walk like, "Yeah, I did it." And I was just like, "Let me talk to you." She didn't want to talk. She was walking past me, so I started talking to her back as she was walking. And a lot of times when I have conversations with these girls, or if I'm talking to them, or if I feel like I'm talking to a wall, sometimes that happens too. But a lot of times, with the girls that I'm around or I'm seeing, it a lot of times their idea of attention is coming from sexual favors, right? Giving sexual favors to young men or receiving them, are really, and rarely actually, they don't tell
Not
me, but
receiving them.
they're not receiving them. Like
No.
they're giving, and the guys are like dipping or telling all their business in the streets, and they know a lot of times that this is happening. It's coming back to them. I remember one time I was absent. Students told me one of the girls in the class had put a jacket over her head while the substitute wasn't paying attention and started to give oral sex with the circle of students around, but just put a jacket over her head while she did it.
And let me break that down to you from a behavior analytic way. She was receiving all of that validation in the moment. And it was a negative type of validation, but it felt good. It was negative because she was getting attention for a behavior that was not anything that was constructive or positive or edifying her body or her soul or her spirit. So that is how we look at what is negative attention and what is positive attention. And when people have that's the only kind of food you have ever eaten in your life, and that has been what is sustaining you, you don't even know how to figure out what is positive, what is constructive in my life. And that part of your brain has been shut down. So you have to engage in different behaviors to help that part of your brain regulate things that I'm big into, and I know you are too. Mindfulness practices, breathing actually changes your brain chemistry. Doing things like exercising. My exercises of choice are running and yoga. It changes your brain chemistry. So that part of your brain is better able to emotionally regulate and move from that safety. Like it's almost like a survival brain is what I call it in training, to, okay, now I can be in a learning brain. My brain can be open to what I might need to learn how to do differently to access positive forms of attention, positive forms of validation, and building me up so that I can make better choices. People who have experienced trauma because of that part of their brain that's been changed, they have such a hard time making good choices and having great judgment. And then trauma shows up in our body in different ways too. Another fact, people who've experienced trauma are 3 times more likely to have negative health conditions, detrimental health conditions, irritable bowel syndrome. You can't go to the bathroom. You got all kind of stomach issues. You have eating issues. You eventually later in life could develop things like diabetes and high blood pressure. That's where the ACEs study comes in, adverse childhood experiences. If anyone who is on the listening to the live is not aware, look it up. Look up the adverse childhood experiences questionnaire. It's 10 questions. You can do it online. And you can look at the research around it and the scores, how they correlate to later physical medical health conditions. That's why it's so important to find those behaviors that you can engage in that help you deal with and combat the trauma that you've experienced so that you can begin to change your brain and heal your body, because trauma stays in our body. And that was one of the things that we talked about last time. It stays there in our cells. We have to figure out a way to release it.
I did, you know, I'm into all types of spiritual practices, so this may not apply to everybody. I did a sound bowl healing, right? And what they do, they take a sound bowl, which looks like, for those who have never seen it, it looks like just a metal bowl, almost like something you would eat cereal out of, but it's normally really pretty and it's metal, and it's like plated gold or something. And there's like a baton or something, and it makes a sound. Right? It makes a sound and it like dings. It's really pretty normally. They have big ones, small ones. And what he did was he like looked at my chakras, and he used the sound bowl to realign my chakras. So as he was sitting there going through the sound bowl, he was able at the end to tell me, you know, which chakras needed work. And I already knew going in. At the time, I had a lot of stress going on in my family as I had just become a caregiver. There's a lot of financial issues going on. There was a lot of just me fussing at people going on. And I knew, I said, I know my root chakra, that grounding chakra, that chakra that's supposed to be for safety. I said, that thing gone.
Yeah.
So that chakra don't exist on my body. And he was like, your root chakra and your heart chakra and my sacral chakra, which is, of course, your ability to feel free and creative. I'm saying this for anyone who's not familiar with the chakras. And my heart chakra, of course, would be like that love chakra, right? That feeling loved and being able to give and receive love. Like those are the 3 chakras, right? That were messed. Like he said they need some.
You jacked up. He was jacked up.
They need some work. So finding different practices that you can use. I want to touch on something because we're talking a lot about, of course, and you mentioned a lot about like the behaviors that you see that exist in children. And a lot of times, you know, those behaviors are results of different aspects of trauma. And I want to actually touch on, for anybody who's a parent or a teacher or even a guardian, I saw a video posted that someone posted on social media, and the mom or the aunt, whomever, her son had been having behavior issues. I don't know if it's in the house, at school, you know, you don't know too much context. But she was like, you know, she called her son, she said she got a badass son. We got a badass son, you know, and they think you can't put them in the jail. You bring the jail to your house. And she put him in the closet. It was like a walk-in closet. She put, there was nothing in there but a bed and a couple items of clothing. The bed had sheets and stuff on it. And she opened the closet door. He's in there, and she was pretty much asking him questions. And she said, "What's your inmate number?" Yes, she asked him, "What's your inmate number?" He said a number. He had like literally like he hand washed. I don't know if he actually hand washed it, but he had like a pair of underwear, some pants, and whatever else hanging, and not hanging on a hanger, but like hanging like he had threw it over the top part of the closet. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to get you the result that you want, ma'am. To actually call it a jail. Now, once again, I'm not certain, like, you know, what what he had done. And honestly, it's still a very big step to not even just, one, you're putting him in a closet. There's no windows in there. And then on top of that, he had the inmate number.
Where was he going to the bathroom?
I'm assuming he could leave the closet for the bathroom. I'm assuming. But I know she specified that there's no outside time. It was just school, and that he had to do his homework, everything in there. Once again, don't know the full context, okay? But, right, what do we for parents, because some parents are at a loss. I'm not going to lie. As a teacher, I know I've encountered parents who I call and I'll say, hey, listen, I'm having some issues with John, and John is, doing X, Y, Z in class. I just need to know what I can do. And I've had parents tell me, you do whatever you need to do, Miss Johnson, because
I did too when I was in the classroom. Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, well, what you mean? Do whatever you need to do. Like, they spent, like, whatever you want to do, that's your child. That's pretty much what they were saying. And then in this case scenario with the video, right, where we're seeing this parent, put her son in the closet. Once again, don't know the context, don't know what this child did. The child seemed very humble in the video. He said his number. It was very meek. And what are your suggestions to parents who may feel as if they're at their last, I guess, wits end when it comes to dealing with behavioral issues with children, right? Because there are parents who really, they're frustrated, right? Their kids are acting up in school. The kids are also acting up at home, and they literally feel like they don't know what else to do. What would you suggest in that moment? And also, I just want your commentary on the video in itself.
So much to unpack here. So, suggestions to parents who are dealing with challenging behavior. Let me start there and then we'll come back to the video. There are 4 reasons that we do anything that we do. People who are behaving good or people who are behaving badly, right? And let's talk about children because that's what was in the example, and most of my experience has been with children. Children do things for one of 4 reasons. 1, they want to get attention, whether it's positive attention or negative attention. We have a lot of control over that as caregivers and parents in teaching them what is the type of attention they want to seek. Remember, attention is positive. That's when you are doing genuine relationship building, rapport building things with your kids, having conversations with them, talking about what their interests are. Hey, I noticed that if you're a teacher, I noticed that you have a new shirt on today. Just general things, right? Negative attention is anytime we attend to a behavior that we want to see change or decrease. So every time we verbally reprimand, every time we redirect, every time we say to a kid, you bad, you bad, that's negative attention. That's one reason. I say that out, I put that out there because we're going to come back to that again. It's so important to me. The second reason kids do anything is to gain access to something in their environment. They want something tangible, right? They want the video game. They want the shoes. And I'm thinking specifically about kids. When you have kids who engage in challenging behavior because they know it's going to get them access to that thing, guess what you've done? You've reinforced it. And in the classroom, I know you and I have seen this a lot. Kids are wilding out. They got the newest Jordans. They got money. They got jewelry. They got the freshest clothes. What leverage do parents have if if their kids know if I turn up enough, then I'm still going to get that thing that I want? Another example, in the work that I do in the Department of Juvenile Justice, many of these children have experienced trauma. They will tell me when I go see them, it's almost like a jail facility. This kid has torn up the whole entire building. I'm talking about breaking windows, ripping TVs down. They tell me I'm going to crash out. I'm going to crash out, Miss Robin. Then I know they're going to give me what I want. And then what I have seen is that kids crash out, but then you get Popeye's chicken dinner for the next week because the staff is trying to appease you so that you don't do that again. It happens in family homes too. Parents need to be aware of these types of relationships between triggers and behaviors, and then what happens after the behavior, which is what a behavior analyst looks at to see why kids are still doing that. The third reason is because they don't want to do something. I don't want to do this work, so I'm going to rip it up at my desk and throw it on the floor. I don't want to do this work, so I'm going to cuss you out because I know you're going to send me out of the classroom, and that's going to delay the time that I have to get started in doing that. The same thing happens in the home. I engage in behaviors to escape things. I hate washing dishes. So if I see a whole bunch of dishes in the sink, I could tell myself, oh, I'm going to go sit and watch, catch up on this show that I wonder what I'm avoiding this thing that is aversive to me. As parents, when we have challenging behavior, we have to look at all of those variables around and first figure out what do we think is the reason why we're engaging in those things. So I said attention is one, tangible or gaining access to things is one. The third is to escape or avoid something. And then finally, the fourth is a sensory reason. It feels good to my body. It feels good to how I process things through sight, through smell, through taste or touch or sound, right? And so we typically only see those behaviors in kids who might have a developmental disability diagnosis, something like autism. But we also see it in kids who've experienced trauma a lot. Kids who, hey, Tylana, kids who engage in drug use. And the drugs makes them feel good. Adults who've experienced trauma who emotionally eat. That is a sensory maintained behavior. It helps you feel good. So the first thing parents need to do when they're dealing with challenging behavior is they have to figure out what is the reason behind, and a professional like a behavior analyst or a behavior technician can help you figure that out. I would recommend a behavior analyst, and then develop an intervention plan around it. About the video that you said you saw.
Yes. And for those who don't know, who just tuned in, I saw a video. The mom, aunt, whomever, had said that she had a badass son who kept acting up. So she
Why do we tell our kids? Why do we say that about our kids?
I don't know.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it said she had a badass son. She said, you know, and if you got a badass child, this is what you do. And she put the boy in the closet. It was a walk-in closet. Put him in the closet. All he had in there was a bed, and he had his, like, she called him an inmate. She said, inmate, what's your inmate number? And the boy recited some 6 or 7 digit number. And then she had, like, whatever his underwear, whatever it was, literally she had it, or he had it hanging up as if he was really in a jail cell. When I say hanging up, I don't mean on a hanger. Like, he flipped it over the closet rod, okay? And, you know, she continued to say that he was acting up, and the only time he was allowed out, right, just like in the jail, was for, I forgot, whatever, something like going to school and maybe to eat or use the bathroom or something like that. But outside of that, he was pretty much in solitary confinement, which studies have already shown solitary confinement is horrible for individuals and our prisoners. But yes, and the boy did not look older than 15 or 16 years old at max. At max. So he's a teenager or a preteen.
Wow. I have a lot of thoughts about that. And I'm always going to bring it back to behavior. We are always teaching our children.
Mm-hmm.
We're always. What was she hoping to teach him in having him confined to a room for 20 plus hours a day, or 15 plus if he went to school? What was she hoping to teach him? She was not hoping to teach, she was hoping to punish.
Mm-hmm.
And if kids have already experienced some level of trauma, remember, trauma doesn't have to be that you were beat or that you saw someone killed in front of you. It could be having a lack of resources. A lack of access to resources can be traumatic. A lack of a solid foundation through solid parenting can be traumatic. Someone who is emotionally unstable, parenting you can be traumatic. And so her decision to take him and to confine him and treat him as if he was incarcerated, that's another form of trauma as well. My mind just goes to, what was he learning? He was learning that I don't have a safe adult in my environment, if this was his mom, that can help me learn what I need to learn and help me process what I may be dealing with. They don't really know why I'm behaving the way I am. So the proper interventions have not been put in place for me. And that's only going to further traumatize the child. That's not teaching him how to emotionally regulate. You're in a survival mode. Half of your emotions are shut down. So that video, I've heard of things like that. I actually, my very first client that I ever worked with, it was a little bit different because he was on the autism spectrum and he engaged in some behaviors that were different. Things like pooping in his hand and smearing it on the wall. That's just one of the things that I've seen in my career. His parents, because they did not know how to deal with him, put him in the yard in the doghouse with their pets. So by the time I met this individual, he bit people all the time. I had a chunk taken out of my shoulder right here by this person. I was 19 years old in college, my first time in the field, right? But he had learned that as a result of the trauma and having to survive with animals because that's where he was placed. And when a child is placed in solitary confinement, you got to figure out how to survive. You don't know when your next food is coming. You don't know when you're going to have sunlight, which is very healing to our body, or the ability to move, which is very healing to our body. Your brain and your body goes into survival mode. She was further traumatizing him and teaching him survival behaviors, not how to emotionally regulate and transcend through some of the trauma so that he could learn functional and appropriate behaviors.
So let me ask you this, and this is for the adults who might be watching. And I kind of told you this earlier, but so for my transparency moment, you know, now I just turned 29, right? And I've been doing all self-work and self-healing and spiritual advising and sound bowls and beaching and everything else, right?
And yachting.
Hmm?
And yachting.
And yachting, normalizing luxury in my life, right? And now that I've been doing all of these things in the past year, 2 years, one of the things that has come up has been, of course, you know, you think back to your relationship with your own parents, right? And there's no such thing as a perfect parent. Like, I'm very much so aware of that. A parent's never going to be perfect. However, I've noticed, and I'm going to say my family, which is people of color, and I've noticed when I talk to other people of color, sometimes this is a universal thing, right? But a lot of times when issues arise, it's swept under the rug. And I'm not a sweep it under the rug kind of person. I'm a let's talk about it, because I feel like we need to discuss this so it don't happen again kind of person. And a lot of times, like, I've realized I've come to this point in my own personal life where if we're not going to talk about it, then how I interact with you has to probably change.
Sounds like boundaries.
Yeah, I have to set some boundaries. Now, the thing, and I've been talking to like a few of my friends about this, is how do we as adults who have experienced certain trauma or experienced certain things that, you know, we would like to release out of our lives. Shout out to the full moon tonight. Great time to release, right? But we want to release these things out of our lives. How can we potentially, one, talk to our parents? And for anybody who's a parent or guardian, auntie, uncle, teacher, whomever, on the line that you work with children. So this applies to pretty much almost everybody. If you work with kids, nieces, nephews, how do we also prepare ourselves for moments where we might do something unknowingly and inflict trauma? It might be something we said, something we did, right? To prepare ourselves, because the thing I'm noticing is that, one, talking to your parent as an adult and saying, hey, you know, I want to talk to you about some of the things that happen as a kid. Some parents will shut down. And, you know, it becomes, I did this for you and my parent never did that for me. So in their mind, they did all right. Okay. And then at the same time, as an adult, how do you prepare for people or your children or nieces, nephews, whomever, to come to you and potentially tell you, like, when you did this, this affected me in this way, and I'm aware of that now? Because both of those are necessary conversations, and I feel like we're getting to that point where I see parenting changing for some people. They're having those discussions and letting their kids know it's okay for them to have boundaries. I didn't necessarily grow up in that era.
Nope,
to where
I didn't either.
You know, hey, I don't, you know, that's not okay with me, and it was respected per se. So how do we get there?
So when I think about the parents that I've worked with, that they have inflicted trauma, right? I think every adult who interacts with children needs to first understand what trauma is. It's not, like I said many times already in this talk, it's not those things that we think of like a car accident or seeing someone killed in front of you. Just simply having a lack of resources or being around someone who is an emotionally unstable person who's supposed to be your caregiver and supposed to protect you, not doing that. That's the most simple way I can put it. And our body does not have the means, or we're not able to process that. So that can be traumatic. We as adults have to first understand what trauma is.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, particularly with our community, we got to accept that, yes, that we did that. A lot of times we think it's okay because our parents did it and our grandparents and our great grandparents, but we have to accept that this is something that we did, and this is this person's voice telling their truth.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you're a super bad person. It just means that you did the best you know how to do. I hate when people say, "Oh, you got some badass kid. That's bad. He bad." I hate that. I don't believe there are bad parents. I don't believe there are bad kids. I believe that there are people who lack skills. My job is to teach skills. How can you do or be something that you have never seen?
Mm-hmm.
How can you do that? You can't. You have to learn how to be a better behavioral model. If you haven't had that model, then you need to educate yourself, go to therapy, figure out what that looks like, what that sounds like, and begin to engage in those behaviors. So for people who may be caregivers in any capacity, that's what you have to do first. The next part, if you are a person who has experienced trauma and you're ready, you've been in your therapy, you've been talking to people, you're ready to go, you've been even finding what those things are for you that you need to set boundaries on or you need to address. It's never too late to address it. When you get ready to go and talk to that individual, you need to go with the understanding that they may not know what trauma is. They may not be ready to accept and or hear what, or not what, but how I have been impacted by what they have done to me. So go with that understanding, but also be fully ready to speak your truth. It doesn't make them bad or worse than or less than. It doesn't make you bad or less than or worse than. Less than. The functions, I go back to the functions of behavior. If I'm a parent, and I am a parent, my children have told me things that I have done to them that have impacted them in a certain way. My husband and I, are trying to parent differently than how we were raised. And sometimes it hurts when they tell me things because I think I'm doing my best. I have to sit back and think like, well, one, I'm glad they told me, but if they weren't willing to tell me, what would the reason be why they wouldn't be wanting to tell me? Maybe I've shown them some type of behavior that makes them think I'm not ready to listen. I want to escape, avoid, or delay, right? I don't like that. So I'm going to do something like yell at you, cuss you out, hit you. We have to understand the reasonings behind behaviors, even when we're on the other end and we're getting ready to confront and talk to someone. And even if we look at it from a different angle of not confronting, but just stating your boundaries. This is what happened to me. This is how I made it feel. And because of that, this is why I can only talk to you about these certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can no longer give you money. I just had this conversation with my husband last night. I can no longer entertain or give you the attention for conversations about things that are hurtful to me. Because you need to know how this affects me. So I think if we continue to tie it back to the reasons or the functions behind our behavior and understanding them, that will help us be able to better facilitate the conversations that might need to happen. Sometimes I think that there needs to be a time period where you just don't talk to that person about that until you have done enough of the emotional regulation work that you and I talked about to where you are fortified and you're able to talk to them, not in an accusatory manner, but in a very much matter-of-fact manner. This is what happened to me. This is how it made me feel. This is how it's impacted my life. These are some of the behaviors that I engaged, and I know why I did now. This is why. And now, as a result, these are the boundaries that I'm setting.
That's good. That's good. So for all those watching, and this is probably my final question because we're gonna get into the rapping part, the fun part.
I'm not a rapper, but I used to be in a rap group in college.
You used to be in a rap group? What?
Girl.
Don't say you're not a
Girl.
You
It was so Yeah. Anyway, yeah, they were the rappers. I was just there because I don't know. My name was Chocolate Deluxe. That I mean, you know, what I'm saying
Chocolate Deluxe.
Chocolate Deluxe, girl.
You better go ahead. Okay, so my final question on this part of the topic would be for those who are wanting, and this is, I guess, on both sides, but more so from the adult perspective, those who are wanting to, have those conversations. You say, maybe not engaging in it at first until you know that you're ready. How can people know that they're ready to have these type of conversations, whether it's with their parents, right, about the things that happened to them as a child and they're now older, or whether it's with their own children or nieces or nephews, and they want to make sure that they start to open that door, right, to say, hey, you can talk to me if I offend you, because people will say that, but as humans, naturally, when people start to tell you that you did something wrong, we get defensive or it hurts our feelings, or, and that, like, little people pleasing me, someone come to me and tell me I did something, especially if I know it was not my intention, I know my feelings be hurt, and not trying to take away from their moment. I have to suck it up, but I have to deal with my feelings after. So,
Yeah. First thing, are you still engaging in some of the problematic behaviors? Some of those behaviors that you want to see change? Because if you are at the same rate, if you've not made any change, you're not ready to confront that person. You're not ready for a conversation because you haven't healed the part. You don't understand yet the part that is causing you to engage in those behaviors and what still may be present in your life that's maintaining those behaviors. That's the first part. The second part is that person still engaging in those behaviors?
mm-hmm.
We still could be in relationship with our mama, grandma, auntie, daddy, uncle, cousin, sister, or brother, and they're still engaging in these hurtful behaviors toward us. And so that is something to consider. A lot of times as we age and as we grow, when we become adults, those things don't always continue. There was a period of my life where I experienced sexual trauma as a child. When I got to the point where I was no longer in the company of that individual, many years later, I had to decide for myself, am I ready to talk about this with that person? And ultimately, I decided that it was not something that I needed to talk about, but something that I needed to continue to focus on healing for myself. It's not going to always be a conversation that's appropriate or necessary with someone who's traumatized us. That's something to consider. That's not always appropriate. It's not always what's necessary to get to the next step of your healing. I strongly advise everyone, seek a licensed mental health counselor to help you process that trauma and that pain. If you are a caregiver, if you're a person that wants to understand your behavior on a deeper level, a more concrete level of actionable change that you can take, make sure you consult with someone who has a background in applied behavior analysis and trauma, a board certified behavior analyst, and or an LMHC that understands cognitive behavioral therapy. That's going to be key for you. You have to understand the reason why, the connection between your thoughts and the feelings that they lead to, and then the ultimate actions. And that's cognitive behavioral therapy, but in the applied behavior analysis world, we talk about antecedents or triggers, specific behaviors, and then maintaining consequences. You have to understand that relationship before you can begin to implement interventions. And so that's what I would recommend.
That was good, girl. You've been talking to me. You talking that right? Like, yeah, girl, I might not need to have that conversation. You're right. So,
I mean, what is it going to benefit you? What would it benefit you to have that conversation?
nothing, especially if the person is still going to engage in that behavior anyway, or they're not ready to hear that conversation.
And I can't make them ready. You can't make them ready. Only thing you can do is focus on yourself and fortify yourself, understand the why, and understand how those behaviors show up in your life, the impact of that trauma, and then begin to change from that part.
Let me write my notes. So before we get into the rap part, we all about to get in the rap and mimosas part. You know,
Oh, Lord.
I've been sipping on my little seltzer, my hard seltzer. It's like 2 or 3 or maybe 5% alcohol. I'm coming down from a nice weekend. So how can people get in contact with you? If they decide they want to get in contact with you before we start rapping, how can they get in contact with you? They want to work with you.
You may want to contact me before we start rapping, because once I start rapping, y'all might be like, dang, she whack. I do have to say that I'm a music lover. So that's how I was a part of a rap group in college. I found this group of boys. They were the not the athlete boys. They were the artsy boys at UCF. And their rap group was Skills Foundation. And I just always hung out with them. We all listened to music, we vibe. And that's when I became Chocolate Deluxe. But anyway, sidebar. If you want to contact me, you can follow me at Simplify Behavior. That is my professional business page, SIMPLIFY, Simplify Behavior. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, have been for 21 years. Love talking about all things challenging behavior, racial equity, trauma, autism. That's my jam. So that's what I like to talk about. Yeah, find me there on Instagram.
All right. Well, we about to start rapping.
Oh boy.
Yeah, let me see if you can. Sorry.
Let me.
Screen pause. Let me see if you can hear this part right here. Can you hear it?
I hear it.
All right.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm
Go
ready,
ahead.
y'all. That's how old I am. This is gonna be fun. My husband told me I need to practice.
All right, let's do it.
To all the ladies in the place with style and grace, showing up, put together with a smile on your face, but it's okay to not be okay. To bleh, 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 bleh. Step back, rewind selector.
Okay, I got you.
Thank you, girl. Okay.
I'm your hype man.
Thank you, hype woman.
Hey.
Okay, we're gonna do this.
You got it. You
I
got
love
it.
you.
I love you.
To all the ladies in the place with style and grace, showing up, put together with a smile on your face, but it's okay to not be okay, to seek out some help and do more than pray. And when I say seek help, I mean professional, because trauma shows up in your ways, so many ways. Your initial reaction might be left in the haze, numbness, sadness, all type of confusion, anxiety, agitation. You might even feel delusional. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. You did good. All right. Let me see if I can. I didn't write nothing.
Okay,
So
I had to write, girl.
No, I listen. I need to write. All right. Let's see what I can come up with.
Now, you got something. You got something. Come on.
Oh my goodness.
Spit.
It's another rap and mimosas, and we here vibing. My girl Robin, yeah, we sliding. And you know that we got it. We over here talking about mental health, and we be rocking and we rolling. And you know, ain't nothing if there ain't trolling. That's all I got because it's the end of the show, but we stay on top. Hey, and I want to say yes, because you know that she do it the best. And we over here uplifting people. Seek a mental health counselor as you need. You know, ain't gotta be greedy. You know I got the friends. If you're feeling needy, hit me up. I got the counselors for you. All I gotta do is show support for you. Hey.
Hey.
That's it. We lit.
I love you.
I want to thank you so much for coming on. Instagram is starting to count down. I want to thank all my, people that's watching. Guys, please subscribe to my YouTube. It's in the link in my bio. This live will be up for the next 24 hours. I will be deleting it after that. Okay, thank you guys. Remember, Simplify Behavior at Simplify Behavior is her login. And let me wrap it up before Instagram cuts me off.
and mimosa. These bars in the holster. Pouring up a drink, put my name on the poster. Women who can rap, make you come a little closer. Step out the whip, drop a tip to my chauffeur. New guest on my list. Champagne spot my hips. It's time to get lit. Y'all know what it is.
It's time for rap and mimosas. Thank
Love
you.
you.
Thank you, Robin.
I love you. Bye. You're welcome.
Love you. Bye, guys.